So we now move on to the presentation of the annual report. Call upon our outgoing General Secretary for speaking at the last time of conference.
Okay, Alison Millar to move adoption of the 2020 annual report. Conference, I extend a warm and fraternal welcome to all delegates to this remote conference. When we last met in Enniskillen in May 2019, none of us could have imagined what would have occurred over the coming year. The world as we knew it and the world in which we work has changed measurably. For years, when as a trade union we sought to engage with employers on policies about working on occasion from home, we were looked at in amazement. We were told it would not work, and it was suggested workers could not be trusted to get on with the work if they could not be seen. How all of that has changed since the 23rd of March 2020. While not all of our members have been working from home, it needs to be recognised that with homeschooling, elder care, social isolation and many other issues which we will debate at this conference, the issue of mental health is rising up the agenda and needs to be factored in to any discussions, negotiations we have across all areas on the return to work. There is a broad recognition that many of our members do not wish to return 5 days per week to their desk or workplace. However, any new policies must take into account the views of our members, their personal circumstances, and obviously the needs of the organisation to deliver the services. Throughout the public sector, officials and representatives have now started to engage in discussions and negotiations on remote working policies. Of course, there are significant health and safety challenges in members working from home, and we must, as a trade union, ensure all these challenges and issues are appropriately addressed and, where necessary, any legal advice sought. I also, as the President did, wish to turn to the many struggles our members have been engaged in over the last 18 months through industrial disputes. The first of these was the Civil Service Pay Terms and Conditions dispute. We had members on industrial action over 3 days of strike action, other members in LPS, Child Maintenance Service and Castle Court involved in separate half-day walkouts. In addition, we had members in the PPSNI, the Court Service and the Mail Opening Unit in Limavady and Coleraine on selective action. It was unfortunate conference that the dedication of those members who took action was not rewarded by way of a significant pay increase. However, the action did see a breakthrough from the 1% pay cap, which had been in place for a decade. Members had a 2% pay increase imposed on them, but unfortunately the pandemic had a major impact on our ability to continue with the dispute. On the 18th of December, NIPSA members in the Health Service joined the industrial action. There was a magnificent day of action, solidarity and strength, which even, and I recall, the wind and rain that day did not dampen the spirits and determination of the thousands of health workers who took strike action that day in relation to their pay and safe staffing. Within a month, the Assembly was restored and the issue of pay parity was addressed for those workers. While other unions accepted the outcome, NIPSA did not, and in my opinion, we were right not to sign up, as it did not deliver what it said on the tin. The issue of safe staffing remains a significant challenge, and this has been further highlighted as a result of the pandemic. However, conference, in reality, nothing has really changed, and we must continue to ensure the issue of safe staffing as a health and safety issue remains a high priority, and that we fight to ensure that staff are not forced to leave the health service because of work pressures and poor pay. The issue of pay for our members in the health service remains a massive issue, and we have many examples where members, particularly those who served on the front line during the pandemic, deciding that they cannot continue in that environment with no recognition for the work they have done and continue to do. Words are meaningless and worthless without formal recognition through appropriate staffing levels and adequate pay. I now want to turn to our brave members in Newry, Mourne and Down Council who worked collaboratively with other unions, GMB, SIP2 and Unite, to ensure that members across all of the unions got their just outcome. Had the Council settled the dispute on a range of issues in the early days, the dispute could have been settled for around £80,000. The latest figures I have are that this will now cost the Council in the region of £300,000. I'm sure they wish that they had settled much earlier. The key issues in the dispute was linked to the coming together of the two councils as a result of the review of public administration and issues around job evaluation. Colleagues, this dispute was a fantastic outcome for our members and workers in that council, and proves that when unions work very closely together, rather than trying to upstage each other, we can get the best outcome possible. Never before has the phrase, "United we stand, divided we fall," been more true than in that council. Congratulations to our brave members, representatives and officials who worked tirelessly, including over the Christmas period, to get this just outcome. Conference joins with me in saluting each and every one of you. I can also say that if the management side seek to renege on any element of that deal, they can be assured that the excellent work by those involved will rise to the challenge, and the workers, their reps and officials will remain united and will ensure that the deal is implemented in full. In more recent times, and the President has already alluded to it, two further disputes have arisen. Firstly, I address the issue of our members in QUB Creche who are currently involved in a dispute with their employer regarding working issues and other terms and conditions. I have to say, Conference, the union has been brutal in their approach in seeking to break this dispute. The General Council have put in place whatever resources are necessary to ensure that this small group of workers are fully protected from the threats of their employers. On International Women's Day on the 8th of March, these brave workers commenced their industrial action and worked their contracted hours. Without getting into the detail of the dispute, we have seen intransigence from the employers, firstly by contacting our solicitors when I issued the statutory notice, rather than seeking to engage directly with the union, have threatened staff with issues regarding fire and rehire, and have also deducted a full day's pay when members have engaged in half-day stoppages. This is totally unacceptable. This is the worst of the private sector coming forward in the public sector, and as a result, the General Council approved yesterday to fully back the members and put in place financial assistance to support these workers. We're moving now to further day of full action on the 9th and 11th of June, and unless the employer comes to the table with serious proposals, and I mean serious proposals, to resolve the dispute, then the industrial action will be escalated to a full week of strike action commencing the 14th of June. But I am delighted to say is that we're now going to the Labour Relations Agency this afternoon, but it'll only be resolved if they put real proposals on the table to resolve this dispute. I know, Conference, each and every one of you will be behind these workers to see a just outcome. Please do your best to attend the picket lines on the 9th of June, and I will be sending out details of that and where to turn up, and remember issues around social distancing when you go. And we're also asking the wider trade union movement to also put its weight behind this action. I want to also acknowledge another group of workers that's also been referred to, which is our education welfare officers in the Education Authority, who have recently commenced industrial action. This time they have started with action short of strike action and lunchtime protests to highlight the unfair pay practices in the EA. And as Brian has already said, an EWO is required to hold a social work qualification to be employed in their role. However, as an EWO in the EA, they receive £5,000 less per year. This cannot be fair and cannot be justified, and NIPSA will continue to support these workers in their claim for a fair and just settlement. I want to salute all of these brave members who have taken a stand against their employers. I have no doubt when you all gathered again in 12 months' time, there will be other members who will, unfortunately, have had to be balloted and take industrial action as a result of how poorly they are being treated by their employer. All members, however, should take heart. Where injustices have been served, then our members will decide when and if they will take their ultimate right to withdraw their labour. I am sure this has the full support of NIPSA in the days and months ahead. I want to touch to the issue which we've been engaged in for a number of years now, which is the issue of holiday pay. The issue of holiday pay has been a significant issue for our members across all areas in which we have members and where overtime is worked. In some areas, members have already agreed to a settlement of their holiday pay. This was done via a ballot of the members in each of the areas. However, the case of Agnew and others was due to be held in the Supreme Court in London on the 23rd and 24th of June, following a significant victory in the Northern Ireland Court of Appeal. Conference, following legal advice and as a result of the Agnew case, I can advise Conference that an approach has been made on behalf of the PSNI management to enter into mediation process to seek to resolve the issue, rather than have the decision ruled upon by the Supreme Court. So that's my trip to London cancelled. As a result, the Supreme Court dates have been set aside, and NIPSA and MTB on our behalf have entered into seeking to agree how the mediation process will be conducted, who will conduct the mediation, and the value of these cases, which can run to many millions of pounds. This conference is a huge piece of work, but I am confident that John McShane, along with counsel in the case, will deliver for us on this very significant issue. I appreciate that members may be frustrated and want the result now, and want the money now. However, sometimes the best outcome can take a while to achieve, so bear with us, members. I can also report Conference as another significant victory in civil service. As a result, you will all know of the RHI inquiry and how the management side sought to put in place a different disciplinary process for those members involved, which included an external panel and other issues. We strongly objected to this. However, it was only after having to lodge a judicial review and an injunction proceedings that the management side ultimately came to their senses and agreed they could not change anyone's terms and conditions without agreement and had to agree this. This conference demonstrates that NIPSA will take all necessary steps to defend our action, including going to the law if necessary to get the right outcome for members. In recent days, I'm advised that these members who have been through what must have been the worst 4 years of their lives have been told there is no case to answer. They truly know the value of NIPSA membership and have been very grateful for the arms of the union were firmly put around them to protect them when the employer and others sought to hang one or all of them out to dry while politicians walked away scot-free. We will defend our members and defend them with the law when necessary. Another issue that came up in July last year is I received a letter from the Department of Finance indicating that in line with the commitments in the New Decade, New Approach, a review of arm's length bodies was commencing. It has been extremely difficult to get any information on this. However, one issue NIPSA managed to obtain was the scope of the review was wide-ranging and covered small ALB such as the Arts Council and museums to large organisations such as FE colleges and even larger the health and social care trusts. Nothing was out of scope. Despite many engagements with DOF over the intervening months, I was told that there was nothing to report, that the Northern Ireland Executive would need to be consulted first, and so on and so forth. On behalf of our members across all of these sectors, I strongly objected and indicated that NIPSA needed to be engaged before any decisions or any paper went to the Northern Ireland Executive. I can Conference now report in the last couple of weeks that without notice, a letter from the Finance Minister was circulated to his executive colleagues on this review. And while I understand strong objections have been raised by most, if not all, ministers, it is noteworthy that despite requests for copies of the paper, I have not formally received it. I have had a wee look at it, but I haven't formally received it. I have raised the matter with the new Permanent Secretary of DOF and the Finance Minister, who is the author of the paper. Conference, some of the issues I understand in the paper would have wide-ranging impacts on our members across many areas of the civil and public sector. If this paper ever sees the light of day, or even part of it, then NIPSA will need to put in place the resources to deal with what could be the most significant review, or even bigger, since the review of public administration. Conference, members can be assured that this piece of work will be prioritised and will be a key issue, not just for NIPSA, but other public sector trade unions. However, Conference, NIPSA must and will lead the way on this issue. As the current chairperson of the Northern Ireland Committee of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, I will ensure that this is a priority issue and will work closely with NIPSA over the coming weeks and months following my retirement. Another issue that I've held very dear to my heart over my time as General Secretary and before is the issue of agency workers. And despite improvements in some areas of getting some permanent competitions across the public sector underway, unfortunately they are not moving fast enough to my satisfaction or to our executive committees to address the scourge of employers across the public sector abusing the use of agency workers to deliver vital public services. In the civil service, we have been seeing improvements with 800 administrative officers have been made offers and many have commenced employment. However, Conference, that's against the backdrop of over 2,500 agency workers employed in the civil service prior to the pandemic. So 800 is just a drop in the ocean. So that fight must continue. We must also do more, and we must press and press and press again for more permanent staff to be recruited. Whether that be in the civil service and the health service, who is also dogged with tens of thousands of agency workers, local government, libraries, housing executive or elsewhere within this union, we must have the issue of agency workers on every single negotiating agenda that there is across the union, and in every single part where there's agency workers. We must press and press and yes, press again for firm commitments to permanent recruitment so that agency workers who are working in the public sector will hopefully secure proper permanent jobs and they can get on with their lives. It is only when we have completed this task will we have served our members, prospective members and the public well. The thriving recruitment agencies are creaming tens of millions of pounds from the public sector, and you can go onto our website and see the booklet that was done a couple of years ago, and since then it's totally out of control. This isn't acceptable, particularly at a time when we're moving out of lockdown and many thousands of workers, particularly in the private sector, could lose their jobs when furlough comes to the end at the end of August. Conference, when the pandemic struck and the first lockdown commenced, many areas of the public sector either worked from home or were in the office workplaces delivering public services. In our local government area, unfortunately, many members faced uncertain times and uncertain future with the threats to jobs. In a number of public-facing areas, members were furloughed in local government through the direct involvement, however, of NIPSA representatives and officials. We managed to secure that where staff were furloughed, they had their pay made up to 100%. The exception to this conference, and I am up for naming and shaming, was Antrim and Newton Abbey Council, who have treated their staff particularly badly. They refused to make their pay up to 100% for furloughed staff. And they also made some staff redundant. Against this backdrop, they also outsourced some of the refuse recycling work. In addition, it is unbelievable, it is absolutely unbelievable reading in the press that in the last number of days, Antrim and Newton Abbey Council have announced a 50% increase in pay for their mayor and increases in pay for their councillors. NIPSA is calling this out loud and clear. It is the actions of the worst private sector employer, and we must continue to call it out and move to defend our members in this council. And I hope the incoming General Council will put in effort in this council, because I think that council needs to be named and shamed and called out very loudly. Conference, the issue of organisation is on our agenda on Thursday, and we will be discussing that in some detail in the new world in which we will organise. So I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time, and I am coming close to the end of my speech. However, Conference, I firmly believe that this is going to be one of the most significant challenges for the incoming Council, the members and representatives across our union, if we are to maintain and increase our current position. While we are holding our own, we are seeing a decline in recruitment across the union. Therefore, it is absolutely essential that the issue will have to be a priority, as it is the lifeblood, not just of NIPSA, but is the lifeblood of our ability to influence the employer. With high membership penetration and active branches, that is the way forward. Strategically, this will of necessity have to be at the forefront of how we build this union I have been so proud to have worked for the past 43 years, and to lead you for the past 5.5 years as your General Secretary. That was an honour and a privilege to be elected into that position, and I thank you all. Conference, as already has been alluded to, for those of you who didn't know before you came this morning, I have taken the very hard decision to retire from NIPSA. After serving you in many different roles for the past 43 years, I can honestly say it has been a privilege and an honour to be in the position to come to work each and every day doing a job I loved, and it was an honour and privilege to have served you as in the last 5.5 years in particular as General Secretary, and I could regale many stories over those last 43 years. And I'm sure if we were in a conference venue, I'd be sitting up to 3 o'clock in the morning regaling you. And if you bought me a drink, I might tell you a few more stories. Some might be true and some might be well embellished. It has at times, as General Secretary in particular, been a challenge. However, I never expected anything less when I decided to stand for election. Friday conference sees the launch of the election of your new General Secretary. Please encourage members to vote in this election, and as I hand over the baton to my successor, whoever that might be, I will tell them one thing and one thing alone. Listen to the members, because without them and without the dedication of the hundreds of very dedicated representatives, this union would be the poorer and nothing can be achieved. This union is not the General Secretary, it is the members and representatives who I have had the honour and privilege to lead over the last period of time, and I thank you all. I am not conference, however, leaving the trade union stage. I will continue until March next year to be chair of the Northern Ireland Committee, which again is an honour and a privilege to have been elected into that position. And as I move to pastures new and a new era of my life, I want to thank you all for the honour and privilege for working for NIPSA for all of my working life. When as a young woman who thought she knew it all, when I walked through the door of Harkin House 43 years ago next month, I never thought or imagined what a privilege and reward the next 43 years of my life would be. I know I don't look it, but 43 years has done me well in NIPSA. Conference, I wish you well for the future. I will keep a watch from afar, I won't poke in from afar, and I hope that NIPSA will move from strength to strength and the scourge of attacks on public sector workers can be consigned to the bin. Solidarity, brothers and sisters, I wish you all well for the future, and I can promise you I will always hold NIPSA dear in my heart. Thank you, Conference.